your life. And we've looked at, again, the benefits of wisdom and the rewards of wisdom all throughout Proverbs so far, but in chapter 8, we see that wisdom really is the truest measure of wealth, that we can have all of these other things in the periphery, the other benefits, but really, wisdom is the truest measure of how wealthy we are. And then today, we come to chapter 9, and we're going to see how wisdom rewards your life. And this has been, as I said, a theme through all of Proverbs so far, but it's especially re-emphasized here in chapter 9. And I've said it for a couple times here, but let me say it again. Today's big idea is that wisdom is its own reward. So even though Proverbs has identified some very specific benefits and outcomes of living wisely, knowing God, clearer vision, straighter paths, fewer problems, longer life, fuller accounts, better health, all of these things have been promised as a result of using God's wisdom. But the truth is that the greatest reward of getting wisdom is wisdom itself. That means wisdom's value is intrinsic. It's not contingent. Wisdom's value is natural. It's inherent. It's built in. It's not valuable just because it gets us something else. Its value is intrinsic. It's not contingent on anything else. We should get wisdom just to have it. Wisdom, when applied, will positively impact every area of our lives, our hearts, our souls, our minds, our bodies, our relationships. Everything in our lives is improved by growing wiser. So we're going to be in chapter 9, and we're going to look at all 18 verses of chapter 9 today, but we're going to read them a little bit out of order. I hope that's okay. Some of you obsessive-compulsive types might have a problem with this, and I'm one of you, but there's a reason we're going to do this. This chapter follows what, I don't know, we could call it like an A, B, B, A pattern. Like the first and the last part of the chapter are meant to sort of balance each other, or they're understood as counterparts. So the first part and the last part kind of go together, and the middle parts go together. And this was a common way of writing, especially poetry, in the Old Testament. You'll see this often in the Psalms, especially. So we're actually going to look at the first part, and then the last part, and then the middle parts together. So maybe that sounds confusing. You'll be just fine, as long as I'm just fine with it, I think. So, but we're going to start at the beginning here, okay? So let's start in Proverbs chapter 9, verses 1 through 6. Now, the imagery that Solomon uses here is going to be familiar. There's really nothing new in terms of the picture that he's trying to paint. But remember, just because we read something over and over again in Scripture, that's no reason for us to just kind of blast by it like we read that before. Things are repeated because of their importance, okay? So here we are, Proverbs chapter 9. Solomon writes this. He says, "Wisdom has built her house." So again, wisdom personified as a woman. Wisdom has built her house. She has set up its 7 pillars. She has prepared her meat and mixed her wine, and she has also set her table. She has sent out her servants, and she calls from the highest point of the city. So again, wisdom personified here as a woman. Now, the 7 pillars here are a symbol of strength or completeness, right? That number 7 in the Bible is to represent not necessarily specifically, literally number 7, but it's a sign of strength and completeness. So wisdom has a strong foundation, okay? And wisdom is preparing a feast. This isn't just, hey, if you want to come over, I'll microwave some Easy Mac for you. Wisdom is bringing out the best, pulling out all the stops, okay? And here's what she says. Here's what she calls from the highest point of the city. Again, so everybody can hear her. She says, "Let all who are simple come to my house." Again, that word simple in the Old Testament, and especially in Proverbs here, the simple are basically the ignorant or the naive or the uninitiated. It's just people, it's those who don't know any better yet. It's not simple in the sense of like minimalism, like they're, living in a tiny house off the land. Not that kind of simple, but like they just don't know any better. It's not their fault. They just don't know yet. So come to my house, all who are simple. To those who have no sense. Now that's a different group of people than the simple. That's people who are dumb, or whether it's accidentally or on purpose, okay? And there's both. She says, "Come, eat my food and drink the wine I've mixed. Leave your simple ways and you will live." There's that offer of life again. Walk in the way of insight. So wisdom invites the simple and the senseless to leave their impoverished confusion and come and live a life of meaning and insight. What a great invitation. So that's what we have here. Verses 1 through 6 is an invitation from wisdom. Now, this is at least the third or the fourth invitation from wisdom that we've read here in the 5-6 chapters that we've studied so far. Notice how persistently wisdom tries to get us to pay attention and respond. And this is godly wisdom, right? We learned that last week, that this wisdom is rooted in and finds its source in God. So God is constantly trying to get our attention. God knows that wisdom is for our own good. Wisdom knows that she is for our own good. So here's what we see about wisdom. When we look at those verses and see what's going on, wisdom personified as this woman inviting us to this feast at her house, we see that wisdom anticipates our needs. Wisdom is prepared to offer us what we need, not necessarily what we want, but what we need. Wisdom says, hey, come to my house. I've got what you need. I've got, you're hungry, you're thirsty, I've got whatever you need. I will provide everything that you need. We also see that wisdom then satisfies our appetites. Lots of other things will leave us hungry, will leave us thirsty, but wisdom will truly satisfy us. And we also see that if we walk with wisdom, if we spend time with wisdom, if we respond to this invitation, that wisdom will develop our insight, right? You will learn to walk in the ways of insight. You'll leave your simple ways, you will live. See, when we embrace wisdom and apply wisdom, remember, wisdom only helps you if you use it. When we apply it, we will grow in our discernment, in our ability to recognize truth from lies, good from evil, and so on. Our discernment will grow. So that additional insight alone is worth whatever price we have to pay to respond to wisdom's invitation. And I don't know about you, but the older I get and the longer that I follow God, the more insight I need, not less. I had a good talk with my friend Harold in the middle of the street on Antelope Avenue a couple days ago, actually, and the information superhighway is what I like to call these mid-road conversations in Ritchie. And Harold and I were talking about that, and I told him, I said, you know, the older I get, the more I follow the Lord, the more I thought I would have figured out. And it's just not true. It's not true. And honestly, I thought that the longer I followed the Lord, that the more I would be able to figure out on my own, and I would kind of need his help less because I'd grow in maturity. But the opposite has been true. God keeps giving me more reasons to trust him and walk by faith. I need more insight the longer that I follow him. More wisdom and more insight. So how about you? Okay, how about you? In what area of your life do you need a lot more insight? Now, I don't mean where do you need more answers. I don't think that's the same thing. What I mean is, where do you need a deeper understanding of God, of how God works, of yourself, of how God is working in your life? What's an area of your life where you need a lot more insight, a deeper understanding? If you get wisdom, it'll improve every area of your life, because wisdom is its own reward. All right, so now, as I said, we're going to study this chapter a little out of order, so we're going to jump down to verse 13 now, okay? Now, in verses 1 through 6, wisdom is portrayed as this mature and gracious host, right? Keep that in mind, this well-respected woman calling out and inviting people, hey, come join me at my house for a splendid feast. Now, in verse 13 through 18, we meet her opposite, a brash and obnoxious woman with ulterior motives, whose name is folly or foolishness, okay? So look at how, again, kind of an A, B, B, A pattern. Let's look at how the woman wisdom is so much different than the woman folly. Boy, easy for me to say. I don't know why I'm having trouble with that. All right, here we go. Verse 13. Folly is an unruly woman. She is simple and knows nothing. So she's naive as well, but she's also an idiot, okay? That's what we're saying here. She sits at the door of her house on a seat at the highest point of the city, so she's kind of sitting out on the front porch, and she's calling out to those who pass by who go straight on their way. Now, this is different than the woman wisdom, right? Who is at work busy preparing for her guests, calling out, sending out a message to everybody, hey, come and join me. You get the picture here that Folly is kind of sitting on the front porch of her house or leaning on the door frame, and as people are minding their own business, walking by, she's like, hey, y'all, pay attention to me. Wisdom, you'll remember, sent out her servants, said, hey, I want you to go and invite people. I want you to go and bring people in. Find people who need what I'm offering. Whereas Folly is just kind of there on the front porch yelling at people to get their attention as they go by. So very different. Folly is bold and shameless and stupid, okay? And rather than preparing good things for her visitors, she basically is lazily tempting innocent passers-by. Okay, verses 16 here. She says, let all who are simple come to my house. Now, where did she learn that phrase? Where did we read that? Come on. Who else said that? Thank you. Wisdom said that exact same thing in verse, 3? 4. Let all who are simple come to my house. So wait a minute, you're telling me that foolishness will try to get our attention with the same things that wisdom does? Oh, you better believe it. Maybe that's why we need insight and discernment, right? To those who have no sense. So even to the same people, she's making this appeal. Come to my house, but look how different it is. Here's what she says to them. Rather than saying, hey, come here and learn to live and be full of insight, she says, stolen water is sweet. Food eaten in secret is delicious. But little do they know, see, that they're naive, the simple. Little do they know that the dead are there, that her guests are deep in the realm of the dead. So Folly makes the same offer as wisdom. Come to my house, right? We need discernment, you guys. We see that folly attracts us, not with true satisfaction, but with secret indulgence. Nobody's got to know. Just come over to my house and I'll give you what you want. Notice that there's the same audience and the same offer, but a very different destination, right? A path of life and insight from wisdom, or the realm of the dead with foolishness. If you accept folly's invitation, you will think that you're going to a feast, but you'll end up at a funeral. Your own, right? That's the picture here. So both wisdom and folly send an invitation, but folly's party is in a graveyard. Her ways lead to condemnation, okay? Folly is ignorant, undisciplined, artificial, seductive, and secretive. Foolishness promises life, but delivers death. So we saw with wisdom that wisdom anticipates our needs, knows what we need, but foolishness, folly, disregards our needs. Remember, wisdom was in her house preparing for guests, preparing to satisfy the needs of her guests. Foolishness doesn't care what you need. It's all about what you want. It offers what we want, but it cares nothing for what we actually need. Wisdom satisfies our appetites, but foolishness or folly actually leverages our appetites against us. Maybe you've experienced that before. In fact, not maybe. You have experienced that before, where foolishness gets a grip on, gets a hold of something that you crave, a desire that you crave, and says, let's just run with that for a little bit. And in the book of James, which I've mentioned is kind of like the New Testament equivalent of Proverbs in many ways, James says that that's where sin starts, is with that desire gone astray. So folly leverages those appetites, and whereas wisdom develops our insight, says, hey, walk with me and you'll gain insight, folly actually tries to obstruct our insight. Hey, come do the secret thing. Nobody's got to know, right? Folly clouds our judgment, darkens our understanding, and complicates things. Now, we might look at these two options here, wisdom and folly, and assume that only an idiot would fall for folly's tricks and temptations. Well then, I would like to introduce you to an idiot, because I fall for this, and you probably do too. Listen, if it didn't work, she wouldn't try it. So I'm asking you to examine yourself here with this question. At what times are you most susceptible to folly's invitation? When are the times, most of us, I hope, most of the time, will choose to listen to wisdom and do the wise thing or grow in our wisdom. Most of us, most of the time, will choose to do that. But all of us, some of the time, don't do that, right? So I'm asking you, when are the times when you're most susceptible to that? We see in Proverbs here that folly cries out to those who are just kind of walking by and minding their own business. They're walking a straight path. They're trying to do the right thing, maybe, or at least go the right way. And even in those circumstances, even in those instances, foolishness calls out and says, hey, wouldn't you like a little detour? Wouldn't you like to come and do something a little more fun? See, we might know that wisdom has so much to offer us, but there are times when all of us are an easy mark for foolishness. So learn to be aware of those times so you can be on your guard. Folly has nothing good to offer us, but wisdom is its own reward. It's worth having just to have it. All right. So this is kind of an IQ test so far, like a lot of Proverbs is, right? Like, do you want to be smart or not? So again, we might look at these two options and assume that, only a fool would follow for foolishness, but that's not the case. Look at Solomon, for example, right? I've talked about how Solomon wrote all these things down, but he didn't even follow his own advice. We're all susceptible. Okay, let's go back to verse 7. So if you read chapter 9 straight through, these next three verses, 7 through 9, make for kind of an awkward interruption. You read through it and you're like, what are those doing in there? Almost like they're parentheses, okay? But because we just read ahead, we can see now that these three verses actually are kind of foreshadowing a little bit, and they show us the kinds of people that'll respond to the two invitations of wisdom and folly. And again, we see that there are basically two types of people here. So here we are, verses 7 through 9 of Proverbs 7. No invitation from wisdom or folly here. This is Solomon providing a little commentary. Okay? He says, whoever corrects a mocker invites insults. Okay, so what's a mocker? Okay, I don't know that I've ever really heard that word or read it anywhere other than here in Proverbs. We just don't use it much anymore. So what is a mocker? We might say, it's somebody who makes fun of things. Well, sort of, but there's more to it than that. Okay, a mocker is one of the commentaries I read said it's an arrogant cynic, and I thought, okay, let's get clearer. This is a know-it-all. A mocker is a know-it-all. It's somebody who thinks that they know everything, that they're beyond correction, and they don't need to be taught anything. They're unteachable. A mocker is someone who says, you can't help me. I've got it all figured out. In fact, let me tell you how much I know. Okay, that's the idea behind a mocker. This is a cynic, somebody who's arrogant, kind of wrapped up in themselves. Okay, so whoever corrects that kind of person invites insults. Maybe you've experienced that. Whoever rebukes the wicked incurs abuse. Do not rebuke mockers, or they will hate you. Okay? And that's kind of the first half of this. That's one type of person to whom the invitation for either wisdom or foolishness goes out. Now, the next half, or the other type of person, is the wise person. And Solomon says, if you rebuke the wise, they will love you. If you instruct the wise, and they will be wiser still. Teach the righteous, and they will add to their learning. I love these three verses. I've seen this play out. You guys, I spent almost 20 years of my life working in higher education in some capacity. Believe me, they would like you to think that it's full of wise people, but it's mostly mockers. Just the reality. Try to teach them, try to correct, try to rebuke, it just doesn't happen. I've seen this play out over and over and over again, but when you find truly wise people, they are open. They appreciate the help. So, the wise, we have learned, are those who fear the Lord, who obey Him, and apply wisdom. So, this really is about our maturation. Okay, I had to go with the Asian thing, invitation, condemnation, maturation. It fits, though, okay? This is about maturing. This is about maturing. The mocker refuses correction and turns against those who are trying to help them. The wise realize how little they actually know. Isn't that something? That's a consistent theme through Proverbs, that the wise people really, they're the ones who realize they don't know very much. The wise realize their need for wisdom and growth and ongoing learning. So, this is about maturation. Mockers remain immature because they resist correction. The wise grow more mature because they accept correction. Mockers insult, but the wise listen. When a mocker, when an arrogant cynic, when a know-it-all is given advice, they resort to put-downs to excuse their immaturity. They make the other people feel small. If you advise a wise person, they will listen and take it to heart. Mockers will turn around and abuse you, but the wise learn. When a mocker is rebuked or corrected, they get offended and they attack the messenger. But if you rebuke a wise person, they will humble themselves and learn. Isn't that amazing how drastically different that is? We misunderstand wisdom and we think that means, oh, you know a bunch of stuff, so you're the one always giving advice and counsel to everybody. No. The wise know how much they don't know and how much they have still to learn. Mockers, Solomon tells us, will hate you if you try to advise them, but the wise will love you. Mockers, arrogant cynics, know-it-alls, unteachable fools, don't want to be told they're wrong. They hate the idea that someone might propose to them a better way of doing things. But the wise love you for telling the truth. These three verses paint a really clear picture, don't they? I love these verses. Don't we all know people whose lives are just stuck because they refuse to receive advice and correction? And don't we all know people who continue to grow and mature because they know how much they don't know? Truth be told, we've all been both of these people at one time or another. But how about right now, okay? Based on how you respond to correction, are you a wise person? I'm just going to let that settle in a little bit. Maybe a deep breath is in order here. But take a look at your life and think about recently the times when somebody has tried to correct you, get you back on the right path, point out an area of your life that's not going well or something that you're not doing correctly and tries to correct you, counsel you, advise you, get you back on the right track. How do you respond to that? How do you respond to them? Is your tendency to say, I'm so glad that you pointed that out, and I think you're right, and I'll try to do better? Or is it to say, probably not to them, but just about them when they're gone, can you believe that guy? What nerve she has. Who does she think she is? What I'm asking you is based on how you respond to correction. Are you a wise person, or are you one of these mockers? Do you reject or listen to advice? Do you ignore or learn from correction? Do you resent or appreciate those who help you grow? A mocker would rather just wallow in their foolishness. But a wise person matures as they gain wisdom because wisdom is its own reward. See how this works? You get wisdom and everything in your life improves. Now, verses 1 through 6 were wisdom's invitation to a life of provision and satisfaction and insight. Verses 7 through 9 told us that wise people will know that they need more wisdom and fools will think they're doing just fine. Now, the next three verses, 10 through 12 here, serve as another reminder of where wisdom comes from and why we should want it. And then in verses 13 to 18 that we studied earlier, the chapter finishes with what happens when we choose to mock wisdom and walk with foolishness. So you see how that all worked together? I hope so. If not, I don't have time to go over it again. So good luck. All right, so verses 10 through 12, here we go. And this is not the first time we've read this phrase in Proverbs. Solomon says again, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. It's like he's pleading with us and saying, remember where wisdom comes from. Remember this. For through wisdom your days will be many, and years will be added to your life. If you are wise, your wisdom will reward you. There it is. Wisdom is its own reward. But if you are a mocker, you alone will suffer. So, in verse 10, that phrase about the fear of the Lord being the beginning of wisdom, we read that in chapter 1, verse 7, and in chapter 4, verse 7, we read something very similar. And the idea here is that wisdom comes from knowing God and from following God. Verse 11 here, where he says, through wisdom your days will be many, years will be added to your life. We've read this already. We've studied this. Wisdom adds value to and enriches every part of your life. So again, this is Proverbs' IQ test. Do you want a reward or do you want suffering? Choose which one you want. So if we accept wisdom's invitation and avoid a foolish life's condemnation, and then we go through that process of maturation, we will have cause for celebration. Like, life is wonderful. There are countless rewards for choosing and living a life of wisdom, but let's not forget that it all begins with a decision to know and to honor the Lord. It's interesting how this works. You can kind of trace this through the reasoning. Now, I've talked about how wisdom is about a discerning heart, but there's reason and rationale to it as well. Okay? So knowing God increases wisdom, right? So wisdom's foundation is faith in God, and understanding comes through knowing Him. So if we know God, we'll increase in wisdom. If we use that wisdom, it will improve our discernment. As we apply the wisdom that God gives us, we become more insightful. I'm just showing how this all ties together. Starts with knowing God. Knowing God increases wisdom. He gives us wisdom. We use that wisdom. We grow more discerning. We have more insight. And when we practice that insight, when we practice that discernment, it enriches our life. When we use the insight, our lives continually improve in every way. And we recognize as our life is enriched that God is the source of that. And so we go back and we say, I want to know God more. And as we know God more, our wisdom increases even further. And as our wisdom increases even further, we grow even more discerning. And as we practice that discernment, then our life is enriched even more. And we go, oh, God, you're so good. I want to know you more. And we know God more. And that increases our wisdom. And we practice that wisdom, and it increases our discernment. Do you understand how this works? I mean, this is a foolproof plan, you guys. Well, technically, it's not, is it? I guess we've learned a lot about fools. It's not a foolproof plan. All a fool has to do is say no, and they don't get to enjoy this. There's a reason that Solomon keeps coming back to fearing and knowing God. He knows, and unfortunately, he demonstrated that it is very possible to seek the benefits and rewards of wisdom, the discernment and rich life, without actually knowing God and without seeking the God who makes these things possible. Knowing and honoring and obeying God are the beginning of wisdom, the foundation of wisdom. We must start there and then keep building on that foundation. So let me ask you, last question today. Am I seeking wisdom's source or just its benefits? When I read through Proverbs and I see all the things that wisdom promises to give me, all the rewards of wisdom, do I just want those, or do I actually want the God who gives the wisdom that produces the discernment that when practicing it allows us to have the rich life? Am I seeking the source or just the benefits? Is my heart's desire for God or only for what he can do? Am I really open to learning wisdom through his transforming work in my life, or am I just looking for a shortcut to success here? Like, are you reading this just going, oh, so all I got to do is that, and if I do that and check these boxes, then I'm good to go? So really, I was thinking about this. The challenge here really is for us to keep first things first again, isn't it? We spent weeks going through first things in the Bible. That's really what this is about again. The challenge here is to seek first God and his kingdom and his righteousness and trust that he'll then take care of everything else, all the secondary things. And in the process of doing that, of seeking him, we grow to know him and trust him even more, and we'll grow wiser. Wisdom is its own reward. It will positively impact every area of our lives, our hearts, our minds, our souls, our bodies, our relationships. With wisdom, we'll experience a deeper knowledge of God, clearer vision, straighter paths, fewer problems, longer life, fuller accounts, and better health. So yes, absolutely, seek wisdom, but remember where it is found. It is found in a close walk with God. Wisdom rewards your life. So let's ask God to help us with this, shall we? Let's close in prayer. Lord, thank you for rewarding our lives through wisdom. And thank you for reminding us that you are the source of the wisdom that we need. Please give us insight and understanding and a discerning heart in all those areas of our life that we find confusing. Lord, I pray that you would help us not to fall for the temptations and the seductions of folly, of foolishness. Lord, knowing where those things will lead us. I pray that you would teach us to be mature, to respond to correction with humility and with wisdom so that we can grow. And Lord, help us to seek you first and seek you with our whole hearts, knowing that you will give us the wisdom that we need. You satisfy, God, you anticipate, you know what we need. We pray these things in Jesus' name.